I was able to turn my life around and give my life to the Lord, to be able to come full circle, to do something positive. But that's what that program allowed me to do, was become the person I am. That person that was me and died. That's not, that person is gone, and I am what I am now today because of the circle of care.
Jose Valencia is a graduate of the Preparing for Adult Living program at the United Methodist Children's Home in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Jose grew up in Oklahoma City, where he ran into trouble as a kid and only made it out when he was taken to a facility called the Boys Ranch, run by the Circle of Care organization, the same organization that runs the Methodist Children's Home.
So I grew up here in Oklahoma City, and growing up I had a rough relationship with my dad and with my mom. My mom, was busy taking care of my other siblings, and my dad was in and out. So I kind of turned to the friends on the streets, the people you meet, people that I thought at the time that cared about me, kind of brainwashed me a little to go into that lifestyle when I didn't really have any business doing that. But I ended up being initiated into a gang and doing a lot of things where when you start that lifestyle, you don't have a choice of the things you have to do. So at that point, I think rock bottom was I dropped out of high school, didn't have a job, had a bad relationship with my family, and it was getting kind of dangerous too. A lot of my friends were getting killed, going to jail. So it just came about that we heard about the Boys Ranch, and that it was just basically the best thing for me, and I would say for any youth in that situation, to be taken out of that environment, right?
After his time at the Boys Ranch, Jose came to the Methodist Children's Home to be a part of the PAL program, a program for youth with little to no support from home, or who are coming out of the foster care system so that they can transition into adult life while going to college.
When I was about 16, I moved to the Boys Ranch, and I grew up there basically. When I graduated high school is when they really approached me with the option of going to the PAL program. Right, a step in the right direction, as far as having your own place and having someone help me with the basic stuff, because coming out of the Boys Ranch, your day is dictated. I had to learn the basic stuff like a savings account, grocery shopping, washing your own dishes, all that stuff of being independent. I had no idea, so I was definitely grateful they were there to hold my hand through that process.
But for those in the program, it can offer much more than just support. It can also give them something they may have never had.
I think the thing that I liked the most was that I grew up within the circle of care, so it was like a family. It was not the typical family, but it was my family, and so that's what we felt like. It was kind of like a dorm-like, but also like your family.
The director of the PAL program and the coordinator for the children's home itself, Christine Hamby, is somewhat new to the organization, but has found herself loving the place and the PAL program.
I actually am a graduate student here, and so I started in August for my practicum, and then I absolutely fell in love with this agency, and so I came on full-time while I'm finishing school, and so I absolutely love it. So that's why I'm here.
Hamby works closely with those in the PAL program, getting them ready for their future, as well as running the campus.
When I came on full-time, I became a PAL coordinator, and so I'm able to be with the kiddos and kind of help them with their life goals, what they want to do for school, and then acting as a campus administrator since we don't have one right now. And so as a graduate student, I've been able to have a lot of really good experience here for that.
A major source of Hamby's love for the PAL program comes from how special it is in the state.
It's pretty unique, actually. We take boys and girls. There's one other program in like the Oklahoma City area that takes just girls. So there's not really a whole lot of programs in Oklahoma that I know of that's pretty unique like this. Similar programs, Youth Shelter of Tulsa, but it's really just a shelter. So our program is an independent living program. So it's pretty unique in that capacity.
Hamby says the program started out with a slightly different goal than the one it has now.
So the PAL program started probably about 10 or 12 years ago, probably a little bit further than that, but it used to be a residential program, meaning it was kind of more of like a treatment facility. So kiddos would come in and they would be able, it's more of like an inpatient where they would get treatment for mental health and / independent living program, and then they kind of transform that into the actual independent living program.
A major reason for the program being at the Children's Home in Tahlequah is how close it is to Northeastern State University, where Hamby is a student alongside those she works with, as it is well within walking distance of the campus. It was this opportunity that brought Valencia to Tahlequah.
With the option of going to the PAL program, the director at the time said that I could go to college if I wanted to. I really didn't plan on doing that. I didn't think that was an option, but they said they had a new program coming up at the Children's Home in Tahlequah, and I didn't even know where Tahlequah was or heard of Tahlequah before, so I took that opportunity because it was free housing.
Valencia counts himself as blessed for the perfect timing of his graduation, as the PAL program had only just started in the way that it operates today.
It is a miracle that right when I was graduating that I was offered that opportunity to go out there, because there wasn't anything. It was just the beginning of it, you know. So 1 year earlier I wouldn't have made it. I would have just come back here. So things just line up sometimes, I guess. God has that path for you and you really just have to follow it and have faith. I mean, it was a big leap of faith to go there.
Beyond the chance for an education, the program focuses also on helping prepare the students, who may have come from very structured environments, for being adults.
It was difficult for me just to come from a structured environment to, okay, now I gotta do my laundry and there's nobody telling me to do it. My dishes, you know, getting a job, being responsible, you know, that was eye-opening. Definitely, but I had staff there that helped me, that held my hand and were patient with me, and it wasn't a smooth transition, I can tell you that, and I don't think it is for a lot of people. But I did struggle. But if it wasn't for the things that I learned while I was there, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have succeeded to where I'm at now. Just the basic things, you know, they really do help you with everything there.
For Valencia, the PAL program sent his life in a direction he could never have made for himself, and helped get him to where he is now.
The idea of being in manual labor like my parents had done most of their life, you know, that's not something, that would have been my other option if it wasn't for the PAL program. It really is a miracle that right when I was graduating that I was offered that opportunity to go out there, because there wasn't anything. It was just the beginning of it, you know. So 1 year earlier I wouldn't have made it.
Valencia graduated from NSU with a major in health and human performance and a minor in criminal justice. Fittingly, he has come full circle and has dedicated his life to helping kids much in the same position he was in not so long ago, and in much the same way that the PAL program helped him.
So I work for a nonprofit agency, Pivot, a turning point for youth, and it's basically the same thing as the Circle of Care. It's just localized here in Oklahoma City. We have different programs, wraparound services to counseling for everything, but the specific program I work in is called SKILL, Supporting Kids in Independent Living. So I work with youth that are homeless, couch surfing. They don't have any permanent connections in their life like parents or anything. They're on their own, or they're first generation. and their parents don't know the ins and outs of what to do during their senior years when they're graduating and applying for college and stuff like that. So I step in and I become that permanent connection for them.
Valencia's passion to help others started even before he graduated, while he was still at the Methodist Children's Home.
A lot of community service on campus where I got to help with the kids there at the children's home and do a lot of activities with the, come back and speak to the boys at the boys ranch. While I was there, I was able to counsel other kids, coming in so they could try and change their life around and show them that they can lift this heavy weight off their shoulder. Because it is like a big weight to lift it off your shoulders.
Through the years, the Methodist Children's Home and the people who have lived there have become a part of the community in Tahlequah. Many people have donated their time and money to see it succeed and continue to help those in need. Dotted over the campus are memorials to the many local people who have helped through the years, both volunteers and employees. One person who has been donating their skills for over 3 decades is barber Michelle Norman.
It was 1987, and I started cutting the chaplain's hair. That was back when the whole place was populated. They used the church, the chapel. They had their own minister, and he hired me to cut their hair. For $35 a month, I would go over and just line them all up and cut everybody's hair, or they'd come here, and then after a while, they didn't have enough money to pay me. And so I just continued to cut hair because I always enjoyed being around the kids and just hearing where they're from and what they're up to.
But don't think her volunteering has not come without some very special thanks.
They always send me thank you cards when I cut their hair.
Norman's connection to the home runs even farther back than when she started volunteering.
I've always known about the Methodist Children's Home. My aunt and uncle worked there as house parents when I was really young. And then Peggy Eaton, which was Peggy White, Peggy and Larry White, worked at Methodist Children's Home too. And they opened up the White House River Ranch, and that's where I came to work when I was a teenager every summer.
Through the years, Norman has seen from the outside how the home has changed and has seen many students come through.
45 maybe at the time, and they were all different ages. They were boys and girls. And there was one family that had 9 children in there. And the mother was on a respirator or some medical condition. So I guess that was back when the Methodist Children's Home was more of an orphanage than, then it was troubled youth.
Norman, like many other volunteers, has watched as generation after generation of students have come through the Methodist Children's Home of all ages, and has even seen a few come back to the area, though not for some time.
There was one boy, and he was an Army recruiter, and he would come here and change into his uniform and then go to the schools, high schools, to do recruiting, and then come back and change back into his civvy clothes and going about his way. But I think I've had a few stop in, but not in the last 10 years. But shoot, some of those kids are up into their close to 50s now.
Norman also volunteered her time to the children's home through their no longer running Fall Festival and even recruited several others to help.
Then we started cooking potatoes, curly fried potatoes, and selling those at the festival. And then I brought in a guy from out at the Methodist Church at Cookson that fried the hamburgers and dogs and all that until we had a full-blown kitchen outside that we cooked the food. I think Darcy and I did that for about 7 or 8 years in a row.
Norman echoes the sentiments of both Valencia and Hamby when she considers the PAL program.
I really enjoy that program, those kids that are that age that otherwise wouldn't have any help at all. Because if they come out of foster care, once they turn 18, then, they don't have a place to live really, even without just having to work full time, and then you can't go to school, and a great chance to get an education.
Despite the good work being done at the home, Norman does look back with some fondness to when more of the facility was being used.
I really wish that there was more of it being used, but I don't know if there's just a shortage of foster kids. I think there's probably a shortage of foster parents more than anything. And then the boys all go down to Gore, to the boys' home down there, and then the girls are mostly in Tulsa at a place. I'd like to see more kids in it, but realistically, that would be wishing you had more kids in the system, which you don't want. But it is a good place for the kids.
The home does still have a structure in place for the foster care program, though it is different from what Norman might remember. And, in fact, this change has led to the campus having something of a misnomer. It is no longer considered a children's home, but is still called that.
So we get a lot of calls about asking about the children's home, and it's not a children's home anymore, although we do have houses here that foster parents can live on and they can foster through Circle of Care, in addition to the PAL program here. Historically, we've taken minors, but we just don't have the capacity to do that anymore, so it's 18 to 24. Yeah.
Currently, there is only a fraction of the number of people living at the home as to when Norman first began volunteering.
We have currently one foster family that lives on campus. So in addition to the PAL students, and then we also have administration that lives on campus too. So when you come on board, you have the option to live on campus. Even if you have a family, we have housing to accommodate for that. So I would say right now we probably have close to 30 people on campus. So we have, of course, 8 to 12 PAL students at a time.
But a shift away from a more orphanage-based system to that of an independent living campus and providing housing for foster parents is not the first major shift in the history of the children's home. The campus was originally founded in the no longer existing town of Britton, Oklahoma in 1917 as the Oklahoma Methodist Orphanage. The Britton home was closed in 1942 and the 57 children were moved to the new site in Tahlequah, which was located on land donated in 1927. The home remained an orphanage until the Oklahoma Department of Human Services took over responsibility for displaced children in the 1950s, though the name had already changed. Hamby says there was a good reason for the name change.
I think, obviously I'm not sure of the year. I think there was kind of a shift movement in society where we had a stigma of an orphanage, and I think Circle of Care wanted to get away from that, and so I think it was just really kind of, we wanted to get away from the stigma of an orphanage. So
The facility originally operated as a farm and ranch with livestock on the grounds, though this element was slowly phased out. The home is part of a network of facilities run by the Methodist Church under the Circle of Care program, which has 5 homes consisting of the Boys Ranch at Gore, the Halsinger Home at Enid, the Francis Willard Ministry Center in Tulsa, and the O.B. Joyful Farm in Haskell. While the homes have some overlap in services, only 2 offer the Preparing for Adult Living program, the Methodist Children's Home and the Francis Willard Ministry Center. Despite its success, the Children's Home and the PAL program can always use more support. Hamby says it can take quite a lot to support the students in the program.
As we are always in need, the biggest need that we have is sponsorships. So we have, of course, 8 to 12 PAL students at a time, and some of those students have sponsors where they will sponsor them throughout the year. Whether it's getting their driver's license, they can help pay for that. Usually it's monetary, so it's usually around $1,000 to $1,200 a year to support that student. So it's really just kind of an extra support for them. That's kind of one of our biggest needs that we have for our PAL students.
Hamby says it is very simple for anyone to find out information on how to donate or how to volunteer.
We have a website, so circleofcare.org, and you're able to go on there and get information about becoming a certified foster family or adoptive family, so we have adoption services as well. If you're wanting to be in the PAL program, or if you're wanting to get information about having a student here for the PAL program, you can go to the website as well. It has all the information on there. Yeah.
This program has helped many people get their life on the right track through the years, giving them a chance at success they may not have had otherwise. And it looks as though there will be no shortage of students who may need this program more than ever in the coming years. There are nearly 9,600 children in Oklahoma foster care, according to the DHS website. While around 55 to 65% of these are placed within their family, that still leaves many wondering and going to foster homes. Many of these kids may still be young. That only makes the PAL program all the more important for the coming years.
Now I've taken quite a few boys, young men there, to try and take advantage of that program. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, because I know it can help you. How far, it's just really up to you.